Hello, everybody. Welcome to Freddie Cooks International Dinner Conversations. If this is your first time here to my channel whatsoever, welcome. You know you're welcome, and I hope you decide to stay a while. Like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you have been here before, you can comment, you can like, you can share, you can do all that good stuff too. And today, before we get into the very valuable conversation, let me tell you what we're eating. We are eating strawberries and cream cookie crumble French toast. Yes, this is not my idea. I stole the idea from somebody else. I didn't steal it, really. I borrowed the idea of the cookie crumble, and I kind of add my own little swag to it. I will go ahead and let you know that the channel that I got this from was Stovetop Kisses. Shout out to Stovetop Kisses for this idea. She actually made strawberry cookie crumble pancakes. If you're interested in that video, I will link the video in the description below. I always wanted to say that. But now that we're here together, I am going to begin eating. Lord, thank you for this food that I'm about to receive. Let it nourish and strengthen my body for Christ's sakes. I thank you for provision. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Got some bacon on the side. And y'all don't know. We're going to have our conversation. We're going to talk. We're going to do what we do. But I need to eat a little bit first. Let's see what I'm doing here. I don't want to get discombobulated too fast. I want to stay pretty. Okay. Here we go. Y'all don't know what you're about to be missing. So I'm going to let you get the first bite of this. Here we go. Quick. Oh, okay. Somebody might need to try this. The cream cheese icing just did the trick. And we're eating with the bacon. It's like a sweet and sour, not sweet and sour, sweet and salty combination. Oh my gosh. Don't fall. Should I get a knife? I think I should. I hadn't even looked up, and I'm sorry. I was focused in. today. I'm drinking orange juice, y'all, with high pulp. My favorite. Okay, I'm about to demolish this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is really a dessert. It's like breakfast, dessert, and dinner all in one. So satisfying. When you have a dinner like this, you don't need dessert. You already have it. Mm. I don't want to start talking too fast, too much. I'm going to get full. Oh, I definitely waited too long to eat. It's like 8:30. Really, that's my normal time that I normally eat anyways. But anyways, so let's catch ourselves up If this is your first time visiting the Dinner Conversations and you're still here, you definitely want to check out the very first how should we say, the very first part of the series. It was in the video when I had pork belly, rice, cucumbers, when we first started talking about temporal versus eternal things. And just to give you a quick review, I'm not going to go hash everything, but just a quick review of how we got to where we are today. We started talking about temporal versus eternal. I gave the example, temporary things are things that can be easily destroyed, things that are temporary, things that you can see, touch, smell, taste, those things. Versus eternal things that you can't see with your natural eyes, but you can see the effect of it. And I gave the example of love and peace. That took us to the next video. We talked a little bit more about love and being an example of things that are eternal. And then the next video took us to the different types of love. Well, I introduced the idea that what some people call love is not love at all. And not to say that it doesn't have the potential to become love, but love can stand the test of time. And also love takes time. Talked about like a plant, for instance, planting a seed of love takes time to mature. You can use it synonymous for a plant of corn, a corn plant. If you plant a corn plant in the ground, yes, it has the potential to produce corn. However, just because it's about 2 to 3 inches out of the soil, it has burst out of the soil, it's growing and growing. You have a corn plant, but you don't have corn yet because it hasn't become mature enough to produce the fruit, if you will. So while a relationship may have the potential to be love, we start off at something as, sometimes we start off as could be lustful, but if it doesn't have enough time to grow and mature, then you end up missing the mark. So I'm not going to go rehash through all of that, just catching us up to where we are. I also introduced the idea that love produces truth. And if you're wanting to live in truth, if you want truth, you have to want to love the truth no matter what it looks like. That's when we went into the test your logic. The idea behind the test your logic was to get us prepared to receive truth and call things as they were. And then I introduced the idea of opposites so that we can really focus in on things that are naturally occurring to be true. There are some things that are it just is. It's the framework for the life and for the world that we live in. For instance, left and right. They exist because of the framework that we live in. You can't say that one does not exist because it's our reality. Up, down, left, right, bottom, top, in, out, front, back, day and night, positive, negative. I also talked about the counterpart, man versus woman. No matter how much we want to try to manipulate and change things, it doesn't change the truth. The truth is, it is what it is. And when you try to manipulate the truth to create something else, it doesn't change the truth. It just gives you a copy of the original. Okay? It becomes a version of the truth, but it's not the truth. For instance, cubic zirconium. You know what I'm trying to say. Cubic zirconium. Thank you. It may look like a diamond, but the value is way, way lower than a diamond. A diamond being the true item, so much more valuable than a knockoff. So no matter how much your knockoff look like the real thing, when it comes under pressure, hear me, here's the message. When it comes under pressure, when it is exposed in the end, the truth will prevail. Okay. I also ended up introducing two other opposites. Good versus, I said evil. Some other people may be tempted to say good versus bad. Depending on your mindset will determine if you said the opposite of good is bad, I said the opposite of good is evil. Well, if you were thinking spiritually, then you would have said evil, perhaps, maybe. But just in general, the opposite of good is bad. Now, is there a relationship between bad and evil? That, my dear friends, depends on context. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I'm just saying everything that's bad may not always be evil. For instance, if you're having a bad hair day, it doesn't mean that your hair day is evil. It just means that it's not favorable. However, everything that is evil, it's always bad, no matter what the context is. So what are we talking about today? I eventually want to talk about where does good and evil come from? Is it just something that we made up? Do they exist? Apart from our own actions? back at the concept of context. Depending on, again, your frame of mind determines how you perceive something. So let's talk about what is good. What is good? What does it mean to be good? I want us to, where's my dictionary? Study a little bit. What is the definition of good? Got my handy little sidekick. The dictionary. When the last time you seen one of these things? Good. Now, keep in mind, words have multiple meanings. So, depending on the meaning that you're thinking about, determines how you would have answered that question, the opposite of good. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is how we interpret the truth. Because how we interpret the truth determines how we respond to it. For instance, if we look at the Bible and you wonder, why are there so many different religions? Well, that's a loaded question within itself, and it has a loaded answer. I answer the discussion that I actually eventually want to get to. However, let's just start with one of the religions. One of the common, Christianity. All claim to believe in the same God. Claim to, it's supposed to be the same book that everybody is reading, but there's so many different interpretations, there's so many different denominations within the religion that believe totally different things. And why is that? Well, when I mentioned the state of mind that you're in, that your state of mind gives you a different understanding, a different interpretation. For instance, what is the opposite of natural? If I don't give you any context, then I don't know what you would say. What would you say? I wish this was alive right now because I don't know what you would say. Some people may say the opposite of natural is artificial. For instance, if you're speaking in the context of natural food, then the opposite of artificial, natural food would be, suppose, either artificial food or processed food, maybe? I don't know. The difference between natural hair or the opposite of natural hair would be fake hair or weave, but opposite of natural in that sense would be fake. However, depending on the context, if I was talking spiritually, the opposite of natural regarding this natural world that we live in, if the opposite of natural would be spiritual. But if you're not thinking from a spiritual point of view, then sorry, my camera cut off, but here I am continuing. So I was saying that if you're not thinking spiritually, then you're going to give a natural solution or a natural response to the Bible. Okay, so I'm suggesting here that everyone who starts a church, everyone who has started a denomination or even a religion was not necessarily a spiritual person, because depending on the mindset that they're in, we give. Depending on the mindset that we're in, we give a response based on that. If we're on a spiritual level, we respond spiritually. If not, respond naturally. Where do you get a spiritual point of view from? Where do you get a spiritual thought from? That comes from the source. It's just like this light, this ring light. In order for me to get light, I have to get power from the source. The source, in this case, is the wall socket, which is connected to a bigger source. But if this was not plugged into the source, then I could not get light. Right? So, from that point, all right, moving right along. The definition of good is having desirable or favorable qualities. That's one definition. Another definition is suitable or appropriate, convenient, whole or sound. So we're speaking of the definition of good, and we see that I already have 3 definitions. The point of this is multiple words have different meanings, and when we try to understand anything, we have to really study. Even when it comes to the Bible, we can't just read. When it comes to anything, understanding anything, there has to be an understanding based on the context that we're speaking in. And so many people attempt to read with a high level mindset or a natural mindset. We read something one time, not understanding the context, and either it doesn't make sense or we don't agree. But we don't agree or it doesn't make sense based on our own limited understanding. And I hope I am really making sense here. So when it comes back into context of what does good mean, it depends on the context that we're speaking in. Okay? What does bad mean? So, bad means, the first definition is poor. Now, this is Webster's New Riverside Dictionary. It's old as dirt. I'm sure it's been updated. In general, here are the definitions. Bad is poor. Now, when you first think of poor, do you think of bad or do you think of lack of money? See, depending on your mindset or just from the point of view that you're thinking of, or what happens to come to mind, determines how you respond to the question. Poor can mean a lack of wealth, a lack of money, but it could also mean poor quality. If you have poor judgment, then your judgment doesn't mean that it's lack of wealth. It means that you lack substance or lack quality in the decision. So my point again, we need to keep things in context in order to understand the truth. All right. What else? Bad also means evil. So whether you were thinking the opposite of good is bad, I thought evil at first, because I already knew what I wanted to talk about. But bad does mean evil. In context, from one context. It also means the B part of this definition is disobedient or naughty, unfavorable, and you get the point. So, did we create good and bad? Who determines what is good and what is bad? Do we determine those things ourselves, or were they already determined for us? What are some good things? Can you name some good things? I'd like to know what you would come up with. What are some good deeds? And can you also think of some things that are bad or evil? I don't mean bad in the sense of undesirable. I mean bad in the sense of evil. Is there such thing as evil, or is there not a such thing as evil? Some people would say, who we came up with these things, but my question to you is, what is good? I'm going to eat while you name some good things, as in good deeds, in the sense of good versus evil. That's still good. All right. I wrote some things down, but I can't really find them. Oh, I have them in my hand. So, some things that are good deeds, if you will. Feeding the homeless, would you think that's good? Giving money to the poor, people who have a lack of wealth this time. So helping an old lady load her groceries in her car. She can be, you see someone who's barely able to make it, and you just want to be polite. That's the next one. Being polite to everyone you see. Giving money to the Salvation Army, volunteering at the Salvation Army, or volunteering at any nonprofit organization. Charity in general. So I just named a few things. Now that doesn't mean that's not an exclusive list. That's just I randomly gave some good things, some things that are good. And I would ask you, why is it that those things, or would you agree that those things are good? Those of you who would agree, why would you agree that those things are good? What is it about those things that are good, that makes them good? Forgiving people. What is it about that? I'll add that to the list. I'll let you think about that while I eat another bite. I'm going to help you out. All of those deeds are deeds associated with love. It's associated with selfless acts. Now, when you hear that, selfless acts, it's coming together quite nicely. It's an act that has nothing to do with need. It doesn't require you to receive anything back. Previous discussions, we talked about love needs nothing in true love, or real love, or the highest form of love, needs nothing in return. All of these things, if we can now make the connection to these things that are good things, are things that you doesn't require anything back. Feeding the homeless, you're not expecting them to give you anything back because they don't have anything else to give you. Giving money to the poor, they can't give you anything back if they're poor. Help an old lady load her groceries in her car. She can give you. I mean, now here's the thing. You can help someone load the groceries in the car expecting or hoping that they give you some money. But in that case, now you're not doing it out of love. You're doing it in return. So that's completely different. But if you see someone struggling and you want to help them just to make their day go better, then that's an act of love or an act of charity. So, all of these good deeds, not to beat a dead horse. Oh, is that the saying? Not to beat a dead horse? Yeah, I guess it is. Are acts of love. Showing kindness. Being gentle. being polite. Now, what are some bad things? I'll wait. Are you thinking about it, or are you just watching me eat? Both? Okay, good. One minute. There are plenty of things that are bad. I am going to go to the 10 Commandments just to get things that would be bad from the Bible standpoint. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You should not commit adultery. You should not steal. You should not bear false witness against your neighbor. Basically, you should not lie against your neighbor, your brothers or your sister. You should not lie, basically, to anybody. You should not covet your neighbor's wife. You should not desire your neighbor's house, his field, or anything that he has. Basically, you should not want something somebody else has so much that it makes you jealous of them. Question is, these are 10 commandments you shall not do. I didn't read all of them. I just read a few of them. But the ones that I read, why are these? Now, I'm saying they're bad, but what I just read doesn't say it's bad, but it does. There are commandments say, thou shalt not do it. If there's a command saying thou should not do it, then there's obviously something wrong with it. But what is wrong? What's wrong with doing these things? Now, the first two, honor your mother and father. I think that would go to say that's if you love your mother and father, you would honor them. Honor them doesn't mean worship them. Honor them means be respectful to your parents because they're elders, for one. We're going to continue. Do not murder. Thou should not steal. Thou should not commit adultery. All of those things goes against the principle of love. Killing someone would go against that principle. Committing adultery, basically having an intimate relationship with somebody else's spouse would go against the principle of love for both of those people. It would go against the principle of love for the person who you're committing adultery with, because you're coming in between that person and their spouse. And then it comes between both of those people and their love and their unity that they have. They have a unity, and committing adultery is an act against those two. Now, you may say, well, they don't have a good relationship, and so it was ending anyways. But that is depending on how you see unity. Whether they have a bond that is good or not, whether it's working or not, they have a bond, they have a unity. They put themselves in a unity together, whether it's working or not. They have decided to unite and become a unit. Unit is one. So those two people together are one. Being in an adulterous relationship, whether one of them has broken that or not, still is an act against the principle of love. Thou shalt not kill. Why is that, or is that bad? Is it bad to kill? And why is it bad? Or is it only bad in certain cases? And who determines that? For instance, the cop that in the United States, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of this by now, who has put his knee in the neck of this African-American man and killed him. That was that was murder, basically. He took someone's life, and it wasn't self-defense at all. Not saying that that matters, it's not saying it doesn't. He murdered a man. Does he deserve to go to jail for that? The question is, who decides that? If you said yes, why do you say yes? Why is that bad? Is that evil? Why is that evil? Why would you say that? Because he killed somebody. What makes that bad? Go beyond that. And so here we are speaking about, again, we find ourselves talking about love. If we can judge and say that he should be put in prison, where do we get the idea that only God can judge us? Because we say that, many of people say, don't judge me, only God can judge me. Here we are making judgments every day. So what make the judgments that we make righteous, although we don't want to be judged by anyone? So where does that hypocrisy come from? I like to suggest that people don't want to be judged because it put us in a position to where we have to be held accountable for our actions. So we say, don't judge us. Now, if we are speaking the truth, is it really judgment? Is the question. I didn't really want to go there. I really want to get to the message about where does these ideas come from? If we did not create them, how do we know what's good and how do we know what's bad? How do we know what's good and how do we know what's bad? Everybody certainly is not reading the Bible, but we could probably all agree, most of us could agree that a murderer, a cold-blooded murderer, should probably be put to jail. Why? It is because we all have a conscience. It was given to us when we were born. It was given to man. That's one characteristic of man. And whether we know it or not, we all have the capability to love. We also have the capability to do evil. So are we good people? Everybody would say, I'm a good person. But why do you say that? You are a good person based on whose standards? Is it based on your standard? Based on what standard? Are you a good person because your good outweigh your bad? So because your good outweigh your bad, does that make you a good person? As opposed to a person who does good and all these things that I read that were good, the charities and the deeds that I read, that do all those things, but they killed one person. So them killing that one person, does that make them a bad person when they do all this other stuff that's good? So by whose standards are we good people is the question. Who determines that? Can we determine that ourselves? What right do we have to determine who goes to jail and who doesn't? That puts us again in a judgmental state, although we don't like to be judged. So, where do we go from here? Where does good and evil come from? That is what we will definitely discuss in the next video.